This episode is brought to you by AppWork. Much more than maintenance, AppWork is advanced business intelligence. You can streamline your maintenance workflows and keep an eye on the leaderboard as service team members enjoy the gamification of maintenance. If that sounds interesting, visit appworkco.com. That's appworkco.com and transform your productivity today. All right, welcome to Collective Conversations. I am your host, Mike Brewer, and it's that time again. So grab your favorite beverage, Illy Espresso for me, and join me as we speak with Bill Evick, co-founder and CEO or co-CEO of Synco. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you having me. This is awesome. I think I told you before, I've followed you for years, and I just really respect what you're doing. And I know it takes a lot of time and effort. So thank you very much for helping out the industry just in general, because you give a lot of great tidbits here and there. So thank you.
I really appreciate that, Bill. I'll receive that. I'm not very good at receiving kindness like that, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now you got me all off kilter starting my own show. It's awesome. Thank you. Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then about what you're up to at Synco?
Yeah, excellent. So, it was a really good opportunity for me to join them, and they were just awesome in training me and letting me learn the industry. And I've been in it ever since. And as I always say, this industry has a unique way of sucking you in, and you can't get out because you just meet so many amazing people. So I can never leave property management and PropTech.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like, not to sound cliche, but like the Hotel California. You get
Exactly.
You're in and you can. Well, what about, so you have a history in, let's say, PropTech, rather dating back to before PropTech, I think was even a name or a thing. But what you're up to present day in terms of Synco.
Yeah, let me give you just a little background on kind of where I had been, if that's okay. Yeah, so I came into Yardi right when they had just come out with a Windows product. And so they were kind of on the forefront. And that's when Yardi really took off, is because everybody was in DOS and they were the first ones to do Windows. So I was there at the perfect time. Was with them for about 7 years. And then I got MRI when they got acquired by Intuit. I was with them for about 3.5 years. And then I was with the first payments company in the multifamily space called rentpayment.com. And that's how I got my payments background. And that was just a hockey stick trajectory when I came in. Like, I think they were like $1 million revenue. And then when I left 7 years later, they were $350 million. So it was just, they just took off and went gangbusters. So I was at a really good time, loved payments. I was actually at AppFolio's first VP of sales. And then I was a late stage entrepreneur. And then in 2011, I started a company called AppTech. We were the first mobile first payment solution in the space. And so we were a resident portal and mobile payments, and we had additional suite of services, but did that for seven years. I bootstrapped the company, didn't raise any money, and sold that to a company called Inhabit, which is the parent is Goldman Sachs and Insight Ventures, and sold that. Worked for them for about 1.5 years. Left, thought I was going to take a nice vacation, and then COVID hit, and that's how we kind of came up with Synco.
Got it.
I had no time to travel, and I had a lot of time to think of what the next thing was.
Exactly right. Yeah. I think that kind of thrust all of us into this sort of either a tailspin or a trajectory that was up and to the right. Yep. I want to ask you something. This is really for my own edification. Late stage entrepreneur. What does that mean?
I'd say, typically what I've seen is you have entrepreneurs, like they go out of college, they know they're going to be an entrepreneur, right? And they went to business school, then went to the entrepreneurship program. I wasn't that. I wasn't ready for that. And I'd always wanted to be in sales. I just picked up technology. I love technology and I was very successful in my career. And I went from an account executive and then went all the way up to SVP of sales for, the second half of my career there. And then, I had that one time where it was like, hey, I'm making a lot of money for everybody else. Why don't I try to do this for myself? Mm-hmm. So I was late stage when I was actually 40 when I started, and I went 2 years without a salary because we bootstrapped it. I bet the house. So yeah, and I just so you know, I didn't have any gray hair before I started it. So
and you're 41 today, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, hitting 53 this month actually. So
well, thank you. That I just didn't know the definition of late stage was, but that makes total sense to me. Under that premise, or using that as a basis, my imagination tells me you learned a lot from the various organizations.
I did.
In fact, you said that. What do you think you took away? Let's say, who knows, the top 2 to 5 things that helped you set the stage for not only your bootstrapping effort, but the company that you're running today?
Yeah, I'd say one of the most important things that I learned was actually at Folio, working for them. Really, really smart team there. They built GoToMeeting, GoToMyPC before they actually went in and did Folio. And so they really understood SaaS. And the one thing I really learned was market validation. You need to actually, everybody thinks they have a great product that they can build, and then you go and build it, and then you think people will come and use it. And you really learn a lot when you actually go. And it's difficult to do because you have to get people's time and attention and be like, hey, I'm thinking about building this product. Would you be willing to give me an hour of your time so I can kind of pitch it to you, ask you questions, better understand your needs analysis, and so on. And so it's really important to do market validation because it helps you build a product that that people, when you get out, are going to actually go and buy it. And then hopefully those people that you've been interviewing will become your first customers.
That makes sense. Do you think along those lines, the strategies or the tactics to get that hour of time out of people has changed or morphed? And if so, how?
Well, what helped me is I've been in sales for 30 years. So I know how to, cold call and prospect and, just see if and I've always trying to take the consultative selling approach. I'm not a pushy salesperson. I'm trying to help management companies implement, very complex things. And so I go in as a kind of a consultative approach there. And so, I would just basically say that, it's, I actually didn't have a problem getting in, but it's one of those, you got to pound the phone, right? And you're going to get a lot of no's, but the ones that you do get really do make a difference.
Yeah, I like, this is not my novel term. I heard it somewhere, but I really like it. The dialing for dollars, or in this case, time, right? So you know what, I want to unpack a little bit because I think this is really important, not only for entrepreneurs, but potentially vendor suppliers who are working for established and mature organization. And then that is the consultative sales approach. And kind of tell me the difference between that and, say, somebody that is really going after it aggressively, and why you think the consultative effort, and look, these are our opinions, but I happen to agree with you, why that one is more effective than the other.
Well, when I was selling for Yardi and MRI, I was selling a very complex accounting system, right? Mm-hmm. And they're used to one way of doing business, and you're trying to do it saying, hey, we have a better way, and so on. But it's going to take a lot of time and effort for them to actually go in and make those decisions, implement, convert all their data, train all their site staff, what have you. So what I always did was really do the discovery calls and really understand their needs. And before you even take that first demo or that first presentation, build rapport with them, build trust, understand where you go in as a consultant and try to really understand what's going on. And then when you do the sale at that point, when you're having your sales presentations, and a lot of times my presentations would be a 2 or 3 day process, and you're going in because you're presenting this to different departments and so on. But then you have an idea of what their pain points are and what their needs are, and then you can kind of really focus on that. So
that makes sense. And I think using, like, keying off the trust, it, in my head at least, even in, let's call it lower risk, lower value decisions. In other words, some product that is not as complex as they say a Yardi or an MRI, I think it's still, at least in my opinion, important to think about it from a relationship perspective as opposed to a transaction.
Absolutely. And that's
right. You're investing as much in them or in their business as you are them. I want to shift gears, take a hard left, hard right.
Sure.
Your platform is really set up for communication.
Yes.
Synco. And I think communication, Synco is set up as a communication platform. It's aggregating, or at least that's the way I think about it in my head, lots of disparate avenues or channels of communication. Why do you think, let's say today, communication has always historically been a problem? It doesn't matter what venue or forum or format you're operating in, it's always been a problem, right? Talk to me about the problem.
Especially in property management, and because it's a decentralized industry, right? You have corporate office, you have your regionals, and then you have your site staff. And one thing that I've heard always is at the site level is they always kind of feel like they're on their own island, that they're not really connected to the regionals and the site staff. And so we at Synco, we felt that there was a huge need because, as you know, centralization is kind of the buzzword in the industry right now. And everybody's trying to centralize leasing and admin type things and maintenance and these other things. But there's not been a product that's actually centralized, which we feel is the most important thing, and is effective communication within a property management company. So, when we go and talk to management companies, it's just mind-boggling. They're using Outlook or Gmail, typically in Outlook, because this is mostly a Microsoft industry. They're using texting. A lot of the site staff, they don't even know what they're using. And what's very unique about this industry is like site staff don't even have a lot of times their own email address. They're sharing email addresses at the site level. Or the maintenance people don't even have email addresses. So they're using WhatsApp or texting. And so you have all this, what I'd say, just all this data going all over the place. And you can't remember if you sent it text or email. And so our vision has been get what we think is the most important thing and bring it and centralize it into one platform. So then you can organize your data. And then that data means something to a management company, because I could go back and see 5 years from now, what conversation did we have at XYZ property at unit 2B? And I'd be able to have all that information stored and gathered there. Try to do that in an email or texting. It's impossible.
Now, it might seem like an otherwise obvious answer, but I'm curious if you could provide specific examples where that type of aggregation of communication has ended up being a very good thing, and or potentially it's been disastrous because you didn't have that kind of aggregation in place. Do you have any like real-time war stories that you can share?
Well, I'd say the one challenge that I see with property management companies is everybody's inbox is just overloaded. Mm-hmm. And then we've had some actually forward tech companies, management companies, do some analysis, and they have a 50% unopen rate at a lot of times when they're sending emails out.
Wow, I believe that.
And the problem with emails is you're sending these emails out and you don't even know who's read that message, right? So what we're really trying to do is bring transparency to an organization. So when you send a company announcement, everybody within the organization got it. If you're sending an HR related thing to a specific person, we have this feature where you can lock it. So then it's locked. So then you don't have to worry about them forwarding it to somebody else. Right. So we have a lot of these features and things built into our ecosystem that's very unique, that's important to a property management company. So those are kind of the positive things. And what was your question regarding the negatives?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was like something you've seen out in the field, somebody utilizing your technology where potentially there was a win because you could go back and look at this historical information, and or if, somebody who didn't have a system like that had a just disaster happen because they didn't have aggregated information, or to your point about unopened.
Well, yeah. So a lot of times, like we go back to you have a management company sending, or, you're sending emails and texts, and sometimes you're using Teams or WhatsApp, and just trying to find important information is very difficult to these management companies. And so that's one of the biggest challenges for companies. Like, how did I send that? Where was that document that I sent? Yeah. Right. Where are those pictures that I sent? They can't find it. And so that's what we're trying to help solve, that problem, where now you can easily find this data and it's stored and it's categorized based within our product offering. So
I'm curious if part of that communication is actually old-fashioned telephone calls. Is there sort of a transcription of telephone calls?
So we just launched this past June, and so we were 2 years in stealth mode building this product. So we're building these feature sets. So we're not there yet. Our plan is to basically we're planning on having video and audio. So literally you could be on a conversation with 4 people chatting, and then you say, hey, we need to jump on a call and talk. And then you hit a button, and it's kind of like an always on audio where then everybody's just having these conversations. And then we have the ability, AI has changed a lot of things now, right? So now what we're going to have the ability to do is you'd have the ability to record that and then transcribe it. And then you'd be able to search on that later on down the road, because then that conversation would be attached to that conversation within our product, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. So you went there, you sort of teed up the AI conversation. I think,
yeah. What's interesting is AI wasn't even in our heads when we were building this product out. AI was always kind of in the distant future when ChatGPT came out, and then you said, "Oh my God, what you can do with this!" But the key thing is having that closed moat around the communication piece, because you don't want to have to share that personal information from a property management company to that AI product. So now they have it where you can kind of lock it down, where you only have that information specific to that management company, right? So that's really important.
Yeah. So you've talked about certainly the search feature. You lock that data down. You're able to take AI and sort of farm any information out of that particular data set. Are there other ways that you're thinking about AI, whether it relates to that information that's useful to them or even you?
Yeah. So you have to understand how our product works, because we're totally different than Microsoft Teams and Slack. If you've ever heard of Slack. We have a unique way of doing. We've created this custom communication platform specific to property management companies, because what we found was Slack and Teams don't really work well in this industry, because when you're dealing with channels, if you know the channel, right, it's just a never-ending conversation. And technically, you really want every property to have its own channel. Right. But then you have all these people like accounting and maintenance and so on, and then it's just constant chatter. And so 90% of the conversations that are happening in that channel are meaningless, 9 times out of 10. So then people start muting these conversations.
Yes.
And so it really doesn't help. So we learned that when we were doing our market validation, and then we built this custom solution to really better to have this product that's specifically geared towards property management companies. So the way that our system works is we allow the user to be able to send out an individual conversation. And then they choose an individual person or a group or multiple groups. So you can basically bring in certain people, and then people subscribe to those groups, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. So it's kind of like smart distribution groups in a sense. And then you have an inbox where then the user can choose what's important to them. What do they want to come into their inbox? And what information do they want to have access to, but they want to do it on their own time? So right now, so basically I could say, hey, if we're doing a refinance, right, I want all that information going in my inbox. But XYZ property, they can have their conversations. I want to have access to it if I need it, but I don't want it going into my inbox. So it really gives the power to the user to show what's coming in their inbox or not, if that makes sense. Now where AI comes into play, just think of all these conversations that are happening throughout your organization. And if you are an executive within an organization, you could get a summary at the end of the day saying, here's all the conversations that didn't hit your inbox, and here's the areas that you need to focus on. So that's really where the power comes in. And I know a lot of people kind of like float around AI, but it really makes sense when you're dealing with everybody in your organization being able to communicate. And now you'd have access, like the managers would understand what's going on all the sites. Where do they need to focus on? I keep on hearing plumbing. We might have a plumbing issue at this particular property, right?
Right.
So
I got to tell you, having spent time in the C-suite and understanding the volume that went through my Outlook inbox and Teams, and right, we had all these and text messages to every point that you've made. If I had some kind of summary at the end of every day, that would just have been a dream.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's in our plans for sure. And it's coming up. So we're definitely starting to dabble in the AI side, but I think a lot of people use AI as like a marketing thing, right? But it really does make sense in our product. And then the other thing is like you can categorize conversations. So we could have AI automatically categorize it based on the conversation that's happening. So then you can easily find it. So you manually don't have to do it anymore, that the AI can handle that.
So my imagination tells me that there's some sort of kind of rule set, so to speak, that you set up on the front side, or you sort of teach and train the AI your preferences. And then I imagine over time it learns your preferences.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Got it. And that's how it becomes smarter over time in terms of what it shows you and what it doesn't show you. But you still have access to everything to your other.
That's right. But the key thing is you're not sharing that outside your organization. It's staying in that moat. That's the important thing.
Yeah. And
you've got a lot of sensitive data happening right within a company. So
yeah, that's right. It does. I mean, it was bringing to mind a question about privacy, or even I think even intra-moat, I've seen it happen from time to time where text messages were sent to the wrong people, emails were sent to the wrong distribution list, and it exposes sort of this private data. How do you think about that? Like, even look, we're all human, we're all broken, we all put things out in the world that we wish we didn't hadn't done. So does this sort of mitigate that in any way, or
it does? Because when you're sending out a message, when you do a distribution group, like when you have an at group, you know who's part of that there, so you can actually visually see that before you actually send it. And in addition to that, if you think something's sensitive, you have that lock feature, so you can lock it down. So then nobody within that conversation has the ability to bring anybody else in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. Sometimes that data is important in terms of informing business decisions or strategy, even though it's private data. Is there in terms of aggregation of data and having some of it be anonymous in nature, but still be a part of the data set, is that possible?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would definitely need to get the buy-in from the industry, but I mean, the data is the most important thing. And obviously we would have a lot of data, and if we could use that would be amazing for sure.
What do you think has to happen for, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of trust that would need to be right at the front side of a conversation like that. But what needs to happen, bigger picture, for the industry to bring data together to make not just informed decisions from a strategic perspective for independent organizations, but this industry has lagged in terms of adoption of technology forever.
I know. We're getting better. I always used to say we were kind of 10 years behind.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is really important is, not just data, but integrating all the tech stack. Because if you think about it now, a property management company, I think they have at least 30 products that they're using to run their organization. You have all these different logins, and you have all these things going on, right? And so it's just really important to be able to get all that information into kind of one ecosystem in a sense. And I just wish the industry would do a better job, just being a best of breed solution for a long time. I just wish it was so much easier to integrate with the PMS systems, because I think it's better for the industry in general just to be able to integrate everything, kind of like, if you're familiar with Salesforce has an open API, and it gives you access to that. And I know they tried to initially do that with the MITS integration, but it just never really kind of panned out. But they had the idea, but this industry really needs to have an open integration where you can share this information, and that's going to help everybody overall.
We'll get back to that in 1 second. I just want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by AppWork. Best known for exceptional maintenance, workflow management, AppWork offers so much more. It can optimize operations with its advanced business intelligence that turns data into strategy. Who knew? Data into strategy. That's awesome. Simplify your operations with AppWork's intuitive platform. Service team members love this. They love the gamification of maintenance workflows and leaderboards, making everyday tasks a competition for number one. Who doesn't love a little competition? Well, from project management to team communication, AppWork has you covered. Visit appworkco.com. That's appworkco.com today. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think even the RETA, RETA was sort of the after MITS. I think some of their attempts were in the same vein, but I feel like I kind of see it from two perspectives, and I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but I think if I'm one of the big PMS players, I'm doing that in part on purpose for my business, right?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I just think that, I always kind of say, let the best man win, so to speak, right? Or the best company win, just because it's better for the industry to have all this data be able to flow. So the one thing that we want to do at Synco is, if you think about it, we're kind of because everybody's using it within an organization, from the CEO down to the site staff, right? So we want to be able to take all of the information and all the tech stack that's happening, and be able to ingest all the alerts and all the triggers, all the reporting that's happening, and then be able to take that and then distribute it to the right groups or individual people. So now you have Synco, so to speak, being able to take all this data from all these 30 different products that you're using, ingest it, and then make sure we're not the book of record. We're just making sure people are aware that things are happening, and then directing them, hey, if you need to do this, click on this link, and then it does a single sign-on into that product. Right.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Do you, I was just imagining as you were walking through that, does this govern or facilitate external communication as well as internal communication?
It's a great question. It's a
okay.
great question. Yeah. So that is the challenge. And if you've ever used Teams or Slack, they don't do a great job with that. So it's really meant for internal. And Slack will really try to do a little pivot to bring in external companies in. And it's a little clunky, so to speak.
Okay.
So if you think, with property management, these assets are relying on their external partners to help them run their assets, right? So you have locksmiths, consultants, pool service, all these different things that are helping running their assets. So that was a big challenge for us when we initially started. So it's literally about a month ago, we came out with a new feature that basically allows a management company to bring in an external person into the conversation. But what's great about it, it doesn't force that external person to use Synco. They can use their email. So they could be on Gmail. Know the vendor's email address, right? You bring them into the conversation. You let them see what they want to see, right? Because you might have a long conversation, but you only want them to see this little tidbit of it. And then you say, hey, can you come here because you got to clean the carpets? And then they get that message in their Gmail account. And then they see all the information. There's pictures, attachments, and so on. And then they can take that and then reply back. And then it comes back into that conversation. So then it's stored there.
I understand.
So it's very important, when you're dealing with a management company, to allow their external partners to be able to come into the ecosystem. But the key thing is it's an invite only. They just can't come in out of the blue. You have to invite them into the conversation.
Got it.
So you limit what they can see.
It made me, I was thinking about that in the vein, I was not thinking about it like that, but that is super informative. If I'm looking, so one of the governing principles that I've had over a very long bit of time is that if we look at a new piece of technology to bring into an organization, we have to look at what one or two other things can we eliminate, because this thing is just best of breed and far in advance of this particular thing, or it just changes the game completely. Is this?
What we'll definitely replace is if a management company is using Teams, we will replace Teams. Teams, not knocking Microsoft in any way, but Teams is just a generic communication platform, and it's not built specific to property management companies. And when management companies actually implement Teams, it creates more complexity, because we have not met a management company where now Teams is the main product that they use for internal communication. They just kind of like sprinkled Teams on top. So now now you have email, now you have text, now you have Teams, now you got WhatsApp. So you're just adding an additional layer. And so what we're trying to accomplish is you eliminate 70% of the emails that happen, you will eliminate using our product. You'll eliminate Microsoft Teams, if you're utilizing that. And then we become your internal communication platform. So now all your conversations are organized and stored in one central place, so you can easily find them. And you can go 5 years and, like I said earlier, you could go 5 years and go down to the unit level and be able to find that conversation with the picture or the video that you needed to find.
That is excellent. It's a couple of things came to mind there. This is just a acknowledgement on my part. I am one of those communicators that I know that somewhere somebody in our organization is saving every single email, every single piece of communication. I save nothing. I delete everything, including my sent items and I delete everything, because I know who to go to ask for that piece of information if I need it. But in this ecosystem, I wouldn't care one way or another. It's just gonna.
So you don't delete, you archive, and then it's there, and then all you have to do, you can do a keyword search, or you can search on what we call a tag. Or you could search on a group and then easily be able to find it. But that's really interesting that you bring that up. That was part of the market validation, the things that we found. We were meeting companies where their users on the executive level, because they're getting CC'd on everything because they want to know what's going on. They're taking these emails and spending 30 to 45 minutes a day clicking and dragging it into their folder system.
That's right.
So when we did that, we said, hey, there needs to be a better way. And this is why we kind of came up with this tagging system. And it's universal throughout the organization, because that's one of the big negatives when you deal with a property management company using Outlook and you're clicking and dragging those things into a folder. That's specific to that user. Once that user leaves, all that time and effort goes away.
That's right.
Right. So with ours, it's a standardized tagging system. So the organization says, here's our standard. Here's all the tags that we're going to use. Everybody has to adhere to that. When that person leaves, the new person comes on. You say, hey, do I want to have access to this group and these conversations? And then they're able to kind of come on. And if you think about it, it's a big thing when you're dealing with retention, right? You have all these people that are leaving and you have new people. And how do you train these people and get them up to speed? Now they just don't get this inbox that's just not organized. They actually can go in and say, hey, I want to see all the conversations that happened at XYZ property over the last week, and just get a better understanding of what's going on. So this goes back to the whole market validation and really understanding and doing a deep dive into and because we're industry experts, my partners and I that started the company, we knew kind of what was, we've sold very complex things. So we know the challenges they had, but then really going in and doing a deep dive to understand the questions, to ask the right questions and understand that, and then build that into a product so it's a customized solution specific for this industry.
That makes sense. Bill, I'm curious if, I guess in the AI bucket, and let's use Copilot. That's a term that's been thrown around a lot, Microsoft Copilot, other terms for it. But is it reasonable to think that the system can be smart enough, robust enough that if an uninteresting question or sort of an elementary question comes in, the system can answer that piece of communication?
Yeah.
On my behalf?
I believe so, for sure. Yeah, you would be able to kind of have like an internal chatbot within our product, so to speak, right? Where you could ask it and then you could, and obviously it has to learn from that, but as it builds, we definitely think there's something there for sure.
My imagination tells me that if that summary that I get at the end of the day, if I see that my Copilot has answered something inaccurately or not like I would have done it, I could probably take that opportunity to teach it right there in the moment.
Yeah,
should
exactly.
I answer this way instead?
Yeah. You should definitely talk to my AI guru on our team, Ross Goldenberg. So he'd be a really good guy to talk to on the AI side.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that stuff. I'm really deeply interested in AI, but I would not consider myself anywhere close to. I read enough to be dangerous, but
it's definitely changing a lot of things for sure. It's just amazing how quickly it's morphing. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, let's spend a second there on the accelerating pace of change. I read something that was super interesting to me, and I wish I could attribute it to the author, but they talked about so the advancements that are going to be made over the next 2 to 3 years. Hopefully, I articulate this right. 2 to 3, let's say 5, 10. It doesn't matter. Anytime going forward, you don't look back at like the last 100 years and say, based on this pace of change over the last 100 years, we went from horses to cars, et cetera, television, radio, and all these things were developed. You can't look at that time horizon. You really have to look at like the T3 months, right? Or T6 months, and understand what the pace of change is in that time frame, and then apply that on a go forward. What do you see in terms of this accelerating pace of change, whether it be in communication or in PropTech more broadly, or in property management? What are your kind of forecasts for the future?
Boy, I would have to say a lot of decisions being made on AI that are currently being made, with a human. Obviously, it's going to take time to trust that, but it's definitely going to change our industry in many different ways. From just think of the application process to the potential maintenance related things that you have to do, where you're kind of doing these second guessing, or you could have this database where, hey, what do I do if this happens, right? And then this is what gives me that I need to do on the maintenance. How do I repair that HVAC, right? They don't have that information in there. So there's so many different things. I mean, it's a very broad question that you asked, but it's kind of mind boggling if you think about it.
Oh man, it's every day I wake up and I look at my LinkedIn stream at some point during my morning process, but it just blows me away, the things that are developing and coming at us as an industry.
Yeah. But you still definitely need that human touch. I use AI, but I use it very strategically. But I'm kind of still making the final decisions. I don't trust it enough to kind of do that. So.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? I can't remember the name for it. if you put a prompt in and it brings something back that's like completely delusional, there's a term for it.
Yeah. You know, what's really cool though, you know, we were in a meeting and when somebody brought this up and we never even thought about it, you can take a resume, right? You can embed that resume, you can upload that resume, and then you can basically say, you know, where are the potential pitfalls of this applicant? What are 5 good questions that I should ask? You know, what do I need to focus on? And that never really kind of like it's you don't even think how you can fully use AI when you go through it. It's just it's so that just kind of opened my eyes. Like I'd never really thought about that before. So
it's amazing. I you know, even using that example, do you want to do it from a motivational behavior kind of aspect or a behavioral based aspect, or like you can put in all these nuances to change the questions, or even if you ask the same question twice, you don't get the same responses twice. But
I know. Yeah. And then and a lot of times I have to say, hey, can you dumb this down?
That makes
bring it down to my level.
That makes too much. I'm curious as you sort of look at the landscape. I was at PropTech, I think it was in October of last year or November of last year.
Yep, I was there.
Oh, excellent. So, okay. I saw 2 things happening on the floor. One is that there are a lot of youth in the multifamily space, which is really exciting to me. I think of Gen Z serving Gen Z in the space right now. And Gen Z has been sort of trained right out of the crib with the way they should behave as it relates to how Apple treats them, Amazon treats them, all these technologies, right? So there's youth in our space who are going to change and really evolve the industry, I believe. The other thing I saw that was interesting, and I'm curious your feedback here, was a sense of urgency from the supplier side, especially for startups or people who are, you know, even beyond the kind of early innings of startup, but there was a real urgency to start to make money versus just have a little potential proof of concept. And did you feel that energy happening? And if so, kind of unpack that a little?
Yeah, and on top of it, you know, we're dealing with it. We're startup. You know, we raised initially a $5.5 million seed round, and we did it before kind of the economy went south. But you know, before that, you could just raise money, and they didn't care. It was just all based on revenue. Now, if you're raising money, they want you to be profitable or find a way to be profitable as quickly as possible. So you don't burn a lot of cash. So thank God my team and I bootstrapped my last company, that I'm kind of used to that. So that's how we've been kind of growing this thing where it's like, you know, you have to make those tough decisions. Do I really need to market this way, or do we want to spend X number of dollars in doing it? Because you have to really kind of manage your money, you know, because it's not like it was 3 years ago. So
yeah, it was.
Yeah, so it's very difficult, you know, and it takes time to get product market fit. You know, a lot of times you think you have it, but until you get that rhythm and understand the needs of these you know, of these companies that you're selling to, and how long does it take to close a deal, and you know, what do you need to go? How many meetings do you have to be? Do you have to be on site? Can you do them through Zoom? There's just so many different things. And this industry is a very touchy industry. That, you know, management companies love to be in person, which I think is a great thing, because I think you can get so much more done in a meeting, you know, a 1 hour meeting when you're in person than doing a Zoom. So, you know, I'm kind of used to that just because I've been in the industry for a long time. But I think people that are outside of the PropTech space that come in, especially in the property management PropTech side, you know, they have a little eye-opening experience. It's just done differently than other industries.
I believe that to be true. And I think that in-person example is absolutely true. I'm of that group of people. You just get, into your point, you just get so much more done when you can see.
You know, you focus an hour, you know, when you're on Zoom, you know, you're taking an email, somebody comes into your office and you're kind of like there, and it's just like when you're in a meeting, you're really focused, you ask the right questions and you can nail it. So, you know, within an hour typically. So yeah, we do a lot of travel for sure, but that's good, you know. So
I believe that.
Thank God I like my partner that I travel with.
I have a question that I like to ask people who have started a business, especially a SaaS or a technology or a company. So I believe, at least from my perspective, there's sort of this age-old problem where you have an engineer who is versed in how to write code and how to develop a system. And then you have somebody on the business side or the end user that has, a whole different way of thinking about the world. And these two worlds have to come together, and they have to take this business. And I'm curious, like Elon Musk, he set engineers right next to the guy who's building the car and like, get along, figure it out, right? How does that work in your world?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm more of the visionary, big picture person, and sometimes I lose the details of that. Thank God I partnered with my business partner that was at Aptex, and then he was my CTO there, and he's my CTO here. He's one of the original founders. His name's John Bonds. He and I and our team in general just work extremely well together. And we can bring these concepts, and he's able to understand it, digest it. And what's great about him is that when we initially started this, we were, I would say, lacking because we had never done a native app before, and how important it is to do a native app. So not only do you need to have a web-based application, you need to have a native app on. And so we had to have a very, very stable product. But having a partner like that, where you need the visionary. I mean, I'm not an Elon Musk in any way. I can't develop. I have that's beyond my pay grade. I understand technology. I can be in the dev meetings, but you need somebody to be able to, you need that connection where they can kind of take your idea and bring it to reality. And thank God I partnered with the right team to do that.
Oh, I share that with you.
But it's tough. It really is. It really is. So
I share that with you, that the visionary concept in the loss for details. And to your point, if you don't have the right people around you, you lose so much time and money and resource because it doesn't translate, especially if you have two visionaries in a company and then you're going nowhere. Okay. So I'm curious, because you said visionary, I think individuals like yourself, and if I'm misplaced here, certainly correct me, but
sure,
you are consistently looking down the road toward the horizon, around the bend, so to speak. And so I'm wondering, not only what is innate in you that gives cause for you to think about those things, but what are you exposing yourself to, or what are you doing for intake in order to inform your vision?
I read constantly.
Okay.
I constantly read, and I'm reading, like, when I say reading, I'm not reading like novels or books like that. I'm reading articles, tech articles. I'm really big on X now, but it was Twitter. I'm really big on Twitter. I have people that I follow, and I just get a wealth of information. Obviously, there's just so much information out there, and if you can find the right people to follow, you can really kind of get up to speed of what's happening. I mean, I find out about products and potential, partnerships and what have you before anybody else does, just because I spend a lot of time on my off hours actually reading. And I love it because I just love to ingest this. I love to know what's there. I just love technology and what it can do and how it changes, how it can change a company, an organization, or an industry. And so I'm always kind of looking for that next thing. So that's one thing I really learned, with all the companies I had worked for, they were kind of visionaries where they were bringing things to the forefront that nobody else had done before. So I kind of learned that, and I just thank God I understand and ingest technology. So
that makes sense. So I'm curious if you would be willing to share with our audience and our listeners either book authors or even people that you follow on X, or any sources of information that you would refer to.
I would. There's so many. It'd be hard for me to. Sure. I mean, it's all the way from Elon Musk. I follow him continuously, all the way down to. I love crypto. I'm a Bitcoin junkie. I follow a ton of Bitcoin. I love decentralization. Before I started this, I wanted to do something in crypto and payments with the property management side. But it was too early. Property management, not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
But we got to tackle communication. We got to tackle communication because that's the problem. But yeah, there's just I'd have to give you my list after the fact because I got a really good list. It took me a long time to get to it. Like my one buddy, he just says I'm his information piece. Like I always am sending him information. So.
You're a conduit. I love it.
Yep.
I am curious, and then I'll kind of bring it to a close by asking if there's anything we haven't talked about. But so crypto, and let's talk about the underlying technology, the blockchain. Do you see, aside from payments, which not that I totally get that, I see a use case for that. What do you see in the way like multifamily using the blockchain in some way, shape, or form in the
I
future.
think where you can, I think what's really interesting is when you're buying and selling properties that you, because that's a ledger, you'd be able to do it within the blockchain, and then you could sell pieces of a property, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So there's some amazing things that you can do. There's one coin called Raven coin, and they really kind of focus on that. And it's kind of like the NFTs in a sense, but it's called a smart contract.
Yep.
And they're actually doing things in the real estate sector where they're using the Raven coin blockchain for that. So I think that's kind of like the big thing outside of payments.
Got it. Yeah, I think I recall interviewing somebody last year who was doing that in California. I can't remember the city.
Yeah, there's a couple companies that are trying to do that. So it's very interesting. It's definitely before its time right now, but I think that's where it's going to go. It makes sense. I mean, what I think is really amazing is that Bitcoin actually now got approved by the SEC, and now you can invest in it through a EFT. And so that has kind of brought it. I think now it's just kind of normal. I don't know if these other coins will be able to do it, but I just love what now Bitcoin is just kind of the norm now, which is great.
That's right. So I'm curious. I was just trying to look up the price of Bitcoin today is $68,000. Do you have some sort of forecast?
Oh, well, these ETFs, they're changing the game. I don't think you can. I don't think you can look at previous history and be able to see where it's going to go, because there's just so much inflow with BlackRock and all these other ETFs that are coming in, and they have to hold. When you're buying those, they actually have to hold the Bitcoin, so it's just driving demand. So, I hate to. I think it could be $100,000 before the end of the year, because the halving's coming up in April, and so that's gonna change it. And the one thing I love about Bitcoin is there's only 21 million that'll ever be made, right? So it's the whole supply and demand. So I'm a believer in Bitcoin. So
I think I'm most likely not as knowledgeable as you, but I am also bullish on that. So, and we're not giving out investment advice here. I just
no, not at all. I am having my kids invest in it though, instead of sitting in the. So I'm just like dollar cost average.
Yeah, that's the right way. Well, I want to. Is there something that I did not ask you today that I should have asked you, or that you think would add value to this for our listeners and our viewers?
Oh, I mean, we tackled a lot of subjects and went off. I love that. So I appreciate it. I think you did a heck of a job just to kind of help navigating this. I would just say, I think management companies, I don't want this to be a pitch per se, but I will say this. Management companies really need to understand how everybody within their organization is communicating, and how important effective communication is. Because just think, when you're dealing with real time, and you can know that you send this message, who's read it, you can go and see, who's typing, and you can make these decisions quicker, and people are collaborating more, and you have all this information stored and organized. Just how more of effective company you can become when you actually have this in one umbrella, where now it's, people have gotten by and they've been doing it for this long, for however, but I think you could just be so much more efficient if it's not Synco, if it's something else, but effective communication is, I look at the most important thing in a property management company. So, and any company in general, right?
I've spent time in all the positions in property management, all the way from maintenance up to the COO of an organization, and communication has always been the through line. The problems with communication have always been the through line. So,
or I didn't see that, or I missed, you know what I mean? It's just, exactly. So the transparency is a key thing. So that's the only thing I will just kind of like finalize. And I hope that wasn't that too much of a pitch, but it's just, I think it's very, very important, and just because you've been doing it your old way for forever doesn't mean it's the best way of doing it. So, and you got to grasp technology. And then the other thing I'll say is centralization is a big thing. And I think that having additional tech stacks to help you with that, because now decisions are being made at a central location, right? At a regional or corporate. but you still need to be able to communicate that information down to the site level. And there's probably a lot of questions, and being able to have that and organize that is really important. So communication is one piece of that, but it's really important to have the right tech stack when you go and do centralization.
So true. So true. Well, okay, let's in cap here. This has been fantastic, Bill. I appreciate it. I want to let people know where they can find out more information, and or whether that be you or more information about the company.
Yeah. So our website is www.teamsynco.com. You can go take a look at that. Look at our blog post, because we do a lot of great blogs. We have a 2-minute explainer video. And if you're interested in a demo, we'd love to show it to you. This is our baby, so we'd love to show it. So.
Excellent. I love it. Bill, I want to thank you. I appreciate you investing some time with us here at Multifamily Collective.
That's
and
awesome.
For everyone else, we will see you next time on Collective Conversations.
Mike, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And I want to give one more hat tip to AppWork for sponsoring today's episode. Imagine carrying a digital make-ready board in your pocket with work order tracking and maintenance technician leaderboards designed to gamify the process and bring out your team's competitive best. As a reminder, if that sounds interesting, you can go to appworkco.com. That's appworkco.com today to learn more.